This audiobook is entitled Pear, a Transcendental Fantasy, featured in The Tales of Dovehane, Volume 1, by J. Requard, published by Books. In the middle of the goddess's grove stood an old pear tree. This pear tree was different from the others cluttered around it, and not because of its age, or because of its black limbs twisted by the centuries. What made this tree different was the small door on its northern side, a hatch large enough for someone to crawl through on their hands and knees when opened. This door was a special door, not because of where it was, but because of where it led. This door led to the underworld, and someone had opened it. Lethe sat before the portal, her hands drawn up to her chest. She wiped the tears from her olive cheeks, dragging her thumb across the wet skin. It had been a week since she had last bathed, and from the number of flies buzzing around her, each of those days bore their stink like silk on her sunburnt shoulders. "She went in first, didn't she?" The shadow of Lethe's mother stained the grass beside her. Oils from the ritual glistened on the old woman's arms and splotched the front of her silk gown, much like the one Lethe wore, though unlike Lethe's it was not stained in blood. "She said we'd go together," Lethe whispered. "She lied to me." "Of course she lied," replied her mother. "Anyone worth the goddess's time knows to never stay ambition for loyalty. You should have known. I'm going in." "No, you're not. You'll not take your sister's honor. She earned it." "But what if Kalia doesn't come out?" Her mother tossed her head back in laughter. "Then she doesn't come out," she said cruelly. "Count yourself blessed that you have one less competitor for next year's festival." She started away, back to the ruined field where the bodies of her daughter's labors rotted under the summer sun. "Come, darling, we look to the future now." Lethe stayed before the door, glaring at the entrance to the god's realm. Casting her eyes to the ground as she rose, she dusted off the skirt of her soiled dress. The walk back to the sacrificial table was a plodding one, cold and heavy, a journey through a fag none felt but her. A few women gathered around a stone table in the middle of the goddess's clearing. The rounded edges and surface were stained crimson. Torn bits of intestines and skin dried into the pores, baked by the day's oppressive heat. Lethe recalled the previous night. Filled with the tearing of guts from gaping chasms, she had danced wild as she strung them around the trees in hopes of drawing her goddess's attention. She had relished the bloodbath, slicing and clawing at the screaming victims, as she splashed in hot puddles of life to open the pear tree's door. The only one who had been as fervent was Kalia, and now she had won, rewarded with everlasting bliss. "She won," she whispered, disgusted. Her mother stood on the other side of the altar, speaking to 3 of the high priestesses, old women who had forsaken their chances at the underworld long ago to teach the sacred traditions. Lethe hated them. They had surrendered perfection for weakness, settling for mortal lives filled with petty things like pleasure and food and murder. "I should be more," she said. "I should win, not her." Her mother broke her conversation. "What's that, darling?" Lethe averted her eyes when the priestesses glanced her way. "Poor girl," her mother told the old women. "Can't stand to be second, you know. She'll prattle for a week if I don't stop her now." "Of course," said one of the high priestesses. "How old is she now?" 19. "Poor little fool. If only she had been more devoted. Her sister might be here now instead." "Ah, well, not every child is worth the earth." "Believe me, I know," said Lethe's mother. "But here we are. Perhaps in another season, if someone better doesn't come along." A knife rested on the sacrificial table, a bronze blade crusted in blood. Lethe snatched it up and ran for the pear tree. Her mother and the other priestesses shouted for her to halt. She covered the distance in a few breaths and dove through the open door, landing hard on her hands and knees, skinning both. She crawled in as the priestesses clawed at her calves and feet, tearing the hem of her dress. Lethe slashed back when a hand latched onto her ankle. A scream followed as it let go. Wet heat coated her hand. Looking back in time as the hatch swung shut, she saw her mother writhing on the ground before the tree, blood pulsing from the stumps of 2 severed fingers. She crawled until her mother's wail faded in the darkness behind her. Her knees ached, raw from the rocks and roots hidden in the hard soil of the floor. Small stones cut her palms. A few feet ahead, the cramped tunnel opened to a grand room made of red clay. Flickering torches set in sconces painted the dome ceiling in a dull shade, void of shadow, yet at the same time dark and foreboding. In the center of the round chamber rested a small pedestal. A wide wooden bowl sat upon it. Lethe smiled, sensing her triumph neared. She broke out of the hole and got to her feet, her hair in her eyes. She swept the light brown tresses back and whipped her mother's blood off her right hand, still warm and sticky. Another? Jumping at the voice, Lethe brought her knife up, ready to attack. A small woman leaned against the far wall of the room, wrapped in a black blanket. She chuckled, a hoarse sound. Is that for me, girl? Who are you? Lethe demanded, heart racing in her chest. Did I make it? Is this the underworld? Questions, questions. Those who come here usually aren't so mindless. You will pay respect with answers, Lethe said with a snap to her tone. I am the low priestess for the goddess, and you will honor that. A low priestess, you say? Another came this way recently, spouting the same nonsense. Kalia! A frown creased Lethe's face. Where is she? Is there still time to catch her? The crone raised her head. Torchlight revealed a wrinkled face, obscured by a thinning mop of white hair. Her blind eyes, milky and dull, widened. She went on her way. What other place is there to go? The way? To the gods? Maybe so. Maybe not. The way is the way one needs to go. Needs to be, in truth. Speak plainly. Lethe tightened her grip on the knife she had brought. Where did my sister go? Ah, your sister, and a competitive one from the way you speak about her. The crone stood, trembling with the exertion. Like I said, she left. Her journey is her own, and I'll leave it at that. That won't do, Lethe said. I need to catch her. Why? She runs for the prize, she replied, as if there were no other reason. I would take it before she does. Ah, said the crone. So you both think the way ends in a prize. You prattle. Lethe scanned the room again, and for the second time her focus fell on the bowl. What's this? Rude, but curious. The first can be fixed, but one is blessed for the second. The crone hobbled over to the stand, her frail hands braced on the edges. Do you truly wish to follow your sister? Lethe nodded enthusiastically. More than anything. Once you begin, there's no turning back. I said yes, crone. Then approach, little one, she said, curling a gnarled finger inward. Look into the bowl. Towering over the wretched creature with her youth, Lethe peered into the wooden vessel. A dark smudge in the grain spotted the bottom, a tacky resin the color of dried honey. There's nothing here. Spit, bade the crone. In the bowl, please. Your sister spat in my face when I first asked. That wasn't very nice. Glaring at the mention of her adversary, Lethe gathered the saliva at the back of her throat, rolling it around her tongue. She hawked it into the bowl and wiped her lips. Fiery. You'll be more fun than her, I bet. The crone drew from her black covers a small gourd and pulled out the cork. An opaque liquid drizzled out of the hole, punched into the top when she turned it over. Drink, she told Lethe. I'm not drinking my spit. She leaned away in disgust. I'd rather bathe in my own excrement. Later, the crone muttered. Are you so squeamish, dancing in your violence? Your sister drank without question. Lethe frowned at the situation. She laid the knife on the pedestal and picked the bowl up in her hands. This took her to the gods. You'll find out. The froth of her spit floated on the surface of the liquid. She sniffed the honey and pears infused in a strong mead more akin to brown water than delicate wine. Still smooth and silken, it slid down her throat like thin syrup, soft and sweet at first. Heat spread through her body, blossoming in her cheeks. The torches set on the walls hazed. That was easy. Lethe grinned from euphoria, chuckling like a fool. Such a fool. The crone's voice echoed in her ears.
You want to dance, don't you?
The black blob at the edge of Lethe's vision asked.
Go ahead. I don't mind.
Lethe pitched to the side in the step of a figure eight, lost to the silence and in search of a song. Spinning, the frayed hem of her linen dress flowered out, exposing her blood and earth-crusted legs to the damp warmth of the room. A natural beat timed each movement. The music within grew, soft yet spirited, set in a fast tempo and sprightly melody. She spun and spun, until the floor transformed into a spiral of brown and gray. On the edge of consciousness, two shapes danced alongside Lethe, blurred and misshapen. They sharpened with each turn, until two small girls danced alongside her. Lethe jerked to a stop. She recognized their faces. That's me! And Kalia! The little girls threw themselves around in a wide circle, hand in hand. Lethe stared at the joyous children, confused until her balance faltered, taken by her inebriation. She clutched her head as tears edged her eyes. Is it so hard to see? The crone appeared, turning in a wide canter around the pair. Faster and more fluid than she had been, her graceful movements were too youthful for her ancient appearance. Lethe swallowed the foul taste of bile. This isn't possible. Who worries about the possible or impossible? The crone motioned to the young sisters. This is your memory, after all. We were dancing. Lethe clenched tight her swollen eyes. In the grove, I think. The fireflies were out. There was music in the valley. One of the nearby towns had a festival. She smiled through the sadness, that day made fresh again after years of denial. Kalia and I loved the music. It looks like you two loved each other. We were children. Is love only for children? It is for those who settle. That sounds less like an answer, said the crone.
And more like an echo.
Lethe hardened her face, her lips almost drawn back in a wolfish sneer. It is the truth. Whose? A new shadow formed, seeping through the bricks of the round wall across the room. The little girls ceased their dancing as a form rose from the puddle, congealing into a tall woman. Lethe's mother, the harsh lines of her face not yet defined by the years, carried a short crop in her hand. The little girls escaped into miasma, followed by their mother, hunting after them. So young, said the crone, head tilted aside in contemplation. Too young for such cruelty. She made us strong, Lethe replied. There's no place for weakness. Not in the real world. The ones worth their dirt know this. They must be willing to forsake such things. Those words sound thick in your mouth. Thick with doubt. What do you know, old woman? Lethe sat back, the stench of her body fresh in her nostrils. The smell troubled her stomach into a bubbling mess. She let out a loud burp, its taste acidic and foul. The crone laughed at the indelicate sound. People waste their lives for ambition. Goals are hollow next to the knowledge the journey to them imparts. Oh, and what's better? Dancing with fireflies. The truth. The crone patted over on her bare feet. Isn't that what you came through the door for? I came for power. Lethe glared at the crone like she would have her mother. She felt lost in space and time, disconnected. Her stomach gurgled. Power? What power is better than knowing the absolute truth? Asked the crone. Do you really want to find this prize? It may not be what you expect. The world melted again, back to nebulas and outlines. The bile at the back of her tongue had lost the cloying, rotted taste of the pear mead. I told you already. The crone's grin widened into a sinister smirk. Then you need to let go. Lethe wrenched to the side and vomited. Her eyes fluttered open at the wren's song. Sun kissed Lethe's face, her throat, all the way down to her chest and across her shoulders. She awoke in the grove, sitting up before the pear tree's door. Vomit crusted the front of her dress in smatters of yellow and brown, dried in chunks. A headache flared at her temples, a numbing pressure, like her brain had grown too large for her skull. The sacrificial table had vanished, replaced by the stand and the wooden bowl. How do you fare? In a clearing of the grove posed a beautiful woman, her hair ink black and skin as luminescent as the twin moons at night when full in the face. She wore a himation much like the one Lethe wore, save for its dark fabric. Her eyes, barren of pupils and irises, shone with blazing starlight. Lethe clutched her stomach and ran her tongue over her dirty teeth, the taste of her bile fresh. Still blind, I see. Oh, I see you quite clearly, said the lady. The after effects of the pear mead held Lethe in place, but the grove around her seemed clearer than it had been when she first crawled through the door. Anger and disappointment had left, as if a great weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Is this real? She asked. Am I truly outside the tree? Above or below it? The lady came to Lethe. Somewhere in the middle? Space means little here. Where's Kalia? Lethe searched the grove for her sister. Have we caught up? You still think this is a race? The lady bit her bottom lip playfully, the edges of her two front teeth against the purple-black flesh. What is the prize, then? Lethe glanced to her unwanted guide. The lilt of her voice, the sparkle of her fiery eyes. None of it spoke of a spirit or a mystical creature, but something more. Belonging. We walked to the gods to be among them, with them, as we were meant to be. The lady took Lethe's hand and helped her to her feet before they walked to the bowl. And what are the gods? Our creators and destroyers, she answered. Our betters. Are they? Of course. They are not bound to our weak forms or mortal consequence. Aren't they less for that as well? Something built too high can be brought low when it has no foundation. Only a fool would dare to think such things. The gleam in the lady's eyes unsettled Lethe. You do. That's why you're here, daring to break the rules. Lethe scoffed. I'd cut out your tongue if I had my knife for such sacrilege. The lady clapped her hands. Birdsong filled the air. She pulled them apart, sliding them away from each other. In the space between emerged Lethe's bronze knife, its edge still speckled in dried blood. She presented the hilt. Well, she asked, are you going to cut out my tongue or not? Lethe scowled, her fists tight with fury. I can't catch up with Kalia if I do. But you talk about wrath so easily. And station. You think you're above so many because you can exert your will upon them. The lady tossed the knife up. Light glistened off its edges before she snatched it out of the air in one perfect movement, fingers pinching the flats of the blade. Like a god. What's your point? What's the difference? She took a step back, the knife held low at her side. If you wish to walk the way, then you must consider these things. I don't know what you want. Then you don't know the right questions. What are the questions? Lethe yelled, frustrated. There, she said. That is a good place to start. Or at least a better place than where you were. She pressed the knife to her lips and darted back toward the pear tree. One moment. The lady returned with her hands full and dumped 20 mushrooms with deep purple caps into the bowl. They were dirty, covered in bits of soil and grass, and some were more mottled than the others. What am I supposed to do with these? Lethe asked. Eat them. You want me to eat them? Lethe crinkled her nose in disgust. Why? Because real answers often lie more on the inside than it does on the outside. What matters more, however, is why. Why are you on the way, Lethe? What do you need from it? The question struck her. Never before had the reason for seeking the gods been asked, nor had it been considered since the day she swore to claim her place among the divine. There had never been a reason, nor had one been demanded. Only blind adherence to what was to be. Staked in the middle of the meadows where Lethe had spent her youth slaughtering men, women, and children to appease her deity, the years offered emptiness for the effort. I never thought about it, she said. One cannot truly walk the path until they know the reason. The lady held the bowl in both hands. Once you know why, you find the way. And all I have to do is eat them. Eat them and think. Existence requires some participation, after all. Lethe plucked the first few caps from the bowl and stuck them in her mouth. She chewed, almost gagging on the bitter tang of the spongy flesh. Each mushroom slid down her throat in a hard lump, gritty and wet. A claw of nausea gripped her stomach, and she doubled over, onto her hands and knees. Her limbs vibrated. Don't fight it, the lady said, far away again. Unlike the mead, the words did not wander off into nothingness, but wobbled, trying to break free of the bonds of a word. Sounds and smells crashed together, the cool wind meeting the dew, the dirt, the golden fruits rotting on all the branches above. Light transformed into rainbow strands of shimmering white. Lethe slumped onto her back, eyes wide with mania. The sky shifted blue to purple to black. Stars shivered in their prisms. The music from the underground returned, sharper, louder. Strings vibrated while air rushed through the dented fipple of a bone flute. The beat quickened into a thunderous tempo. The drums formed a perfect rhythm beneath her, until the song danced in waves of the branches and leaves, and swayed in the grass beneath her, infinite rhythms stuck to her bare skin. The earth, now a lover, caressed her flesh with a soft and gentle tongue. What is the question? The clear whisper shocked her from her daze, forcing her eyes open in a frantic search for the source. The lady had disappeared into walls of time and distance. Neither masculine nor feminine, the voice repeated the call. What is the question? A bolt of lightning parted Lethe's chaotic mind. Sense and the senseless staked the boundary between the two extremes. What am I? She whispered. Kaleidoscopic colors banished the blurred lines between light and dark, life and death, a swirl and a cacophony of miasma, undefined and unknowable. The sensation of lust, 1,000 feathers across her naked breasts and groin, mingled with the burn of eons, wrinkled and haggard and gray. Birth cried out in the first gasp before expiration claimed the shell of dust, a form crumbled by the slightest touch of darkness, shackled in gravity. Moans of release met groans of torture. The moons parted from the earth, balls of flame that burned bright for an instant, even in the cruel void of the galaxy. Life rose with the ooze, formless until it found water, then the guts of a fish, until it grew feet and crawled across the soil. The ancestors, not yet men, walked red plains under a pure sun, feeding and killing and mating and dying under the twin moons, that green marcher and his red sister always in the dance of seasons. Cities rose from the stone, taller than the giants and demons who had to be slain for the sake of a jester race. None cared for the little things lost, uncountable and forgotten. And there stood the gods. Life, death, light and dark. More than giants, more than flesh, every fiber thrummed to every insignificant movement made in an endless universe. One walked away, jealous and frightened. Light, without its partner, dissipated into smaller lights, brighter than stars and suns. These gods had their own children. Dragons flew, angels sang, merfolk glided in waves as beasts rose from the rocks to pound tin and copper into shape. Each found their way to the strands of the universe and plucked the fibers as their progenitors had done at the first burst. Dark returned. Heroes rose to face them. The laws and balances, order and chaos, and the measures of the universe set. And yet life and death remained, intertwined and bound, partnered for eternity. At the center of the storm, in the spinning eye, Lethe perched on the precipice of I. Knowledge flowed inward until she thought it might crush her under the weight, but it kept coming, tsunamis of pure radiance. It's just movement. Lethe turned in the midst of an exploding nova, and the planets it obliterated, the history of multitudes evaporated in the stellar dust. Standing before Lethe was Lethe, a perfect reflection, yet so much more than the original shadow. What's moving? Everything. No life, no death, birth and rebirth, manifest and dissolute. Movement. Cognition ended with a scream, a sigh, and the song. I was here first, not her, me! Lethe bolted upright at the shouting. Her eyes adjusted, and slowly, as if beckoned by her consciousness, orbs of illumination manifested from the unseen ground around her. A woman stamped and screamed a few feet away, pointing at unseen figures lingering at the edge of the darkness. The prize is mine! Mine! I entered the tree first. I won! The raving voice, rough and strained, clarified Lethe's attention to a crystal-clear focus. Kalia? The other woman spun about, eyes narrowed into slits. Dirt caked her face and arms, scratched bloody by thorns and claws. You! Kalia shouted. You had to take this from me, didn't you, Lethe? Lethe rose from the empty floor. The buzz on the mushrooms lingered, a tingling euphoria. Her form was lighter than it had been, cleansed, though the lightness seemed different from the emptiness the pyramid had created. There was a peace, something deeper than the physical and more gratifying than the spiritual. Every nerve in her body, the beat of her heart, every part of her had been unified, mind, body, and soul. Where are we? She asked her sister, calm against the pitch-black ineffable around them. Hair still matted from gore, Kalia balled her fists together and shook. You know where we are, she said, growling. We've walked into the realm of the gods, but I'll not share it with you. That's the last thing I'll do. Kalia advanced on her sister. A demon snarl twisted her pretty face. Must we? From the darkness coalesced a small girl no older than 10, illuminated by one of the light orbs near Lethe. The gleam in her blind eyes hinted at the infinite belying her youth. At this point you should be beyond this. It hasn't helped you get here any quicker. I take it you're a maiden now, said Lethe. You again, Kalia called. Still after my glory as well. Poor Kalia. The maiden entered their circle of radiance. Still not listening. You just have to have your way. I demand my prize. Callia's scowl deepened, crinkling her face in branching fissures. I've earned my prize. You can't demand anything, Callia, said Lethe. The truth of what she had seen, of what she had been. Unspeakable knowledge welled within her, seedlings that sprouted an intuition of what was right and what was wrong. She blinked at her next words. Surprised she spoke them herself. There is no prize to earn. Lies! Callia screamed, inconsolable. Lies! 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 You just want to lie to me. To keep me from what's mine. Her head twisted hard to the side as she leered at Lethe. I won't let you. As you wish, said the little maiden. To the winner go the spoils. Lethe gasped at the pronouncement. But you said, shush, Lethe. The maiden raised her hands. The orbs of light around the three dimmed to a subtle glow before exploding in a multitude of colors. Reds, yellows, greens cascaded in silver waterfalls. These streams faded, and when her vision returned, Lethe found herself back in the underground chamber she had crawled into at the beginning of the journey. The bowl still stood in the center of the barren floor on its stand. What are we doing here? Callia demanded. Is this where the prize is? Has it always been here? Perhaps, said the maiden. In the scant light of the room, her form was so much more ominous to Lethe, a darker shadow beneath the apparent one, as if the veneer of youth was simply a veil she could shed at any time. The way the light played on the contours of her face gave her an aged look, wrinkled and tired. But as always, that is for you to decide. She clapped her hands. The panels of the ceiling gave way, falling down in great squares. Lethe dodged toward the nearest wall, her arms wrapped over her head to shield herself from the debris. The stones shattered like glass, dispersing in the air in a soft silver mist. With the roof removed, the sky above the pear grove was revealed, an endless expanse of stars lost on a purple ribbon stained bloody. Those twinkling lights, an immeasurable sea, set a startling backdrop for the ancient fruit trees, the shredded clouds, and the red and green moons, the twin siblings bearing their pocked faces. The maiden waited for Lethe and her sister to approach the stand. Inside the wooden bowl was a line of yellow, pollen-like powder. She drew from the folds of her shift 2 small clay pipes. The final task is simple. Take in the universe. If you survive, you may wish of it what you want. Callia snatched the pipe from the maiden's small hand and filled it with a pinch. Finally! Lethe held a hand up. Wait! Quiet, sister! You didn't beat me into the tree, nor will you beat me to the prize. Callia hurried to the lone torch left on the circular wall that had survived the roof's destruction, and stuck the pipe beneath its flame. Sucking in heat, she inhaled the smoke created by the dissolving crystals. She stood there, perfectly still as she let out a green fog from her mouth. Lethe called out, Callia? Her sister faced her. A change had come over the young priestess. The anger of her expression faded, replaced by a dull and persistent stare that focused on the bowl in the center. Callia trod to it, her movements unbalanced. She braced both hands on the stand and leaned over the vessel. Lethe stepped closer. Sister? Callia raised up, eyes wide. She wrenched forward and vomited mouthfuls of blood into the bowl. Life blasted from her mouth, thick and viscous. One hacking cough ended the violent fit when a long track of flesh slid from her throat, plopping into the vessel with a wet smack. Lethe shuddered when Callia fell backwards, smacking the clay hard. The smell of regurgitated viscera filled the space, a wrenching odor that would have driven her to her knees if shock had not frozen her in place. Poor Callia! The maiden walked to the corpse. She fought every step of the way. Oh well. She gave an easy shrug. Your turn, Lethe. Lethe heaved, her eyes wet with tears. After years of competition, backstabbing, it was over so quickly. Her greatest foe extinguished in a matter of moments. It should have been a joyous occasion, a triumph of fate. Instead, she felt lost, a piece of her cut away to expose the tumor that had been their lives together. My turn? You wish to walk the way, said the maiden, her voice anything but childlike, and you know the cost of turning back now. Madness. Awful, bloody madness. She wiped away the tears, her cheeks tight and swollen. Will I die? Like my sister? How one takes the universe is up to them. So are the consequences. Lethe covered her mouth at the fleshy chunks floating in the blood-filled bowl. She stuck her fingers into the warm mass, pushing aside her sister's torn windpipe. I can't find it. I can't... Oh, sorry, said the maiden with a little girl's laugh. She snapped her fingers. Lethe looked into the bowl to find it empty, save for the short line of pollen. Accepting the offered pipe from her guide, she loaded it before retreating to the final torch. She held the bowl beneath the flame. The pollen blackened, the spike crystals glowing under the heat. Her lips to the stem, Lethe drew in the smoke, tasting of molded fruit and tanner's brine. Hot and angry, it entered her lungs like a cascade of burning stones. She dropped the pipe, which shattered at her feet, but left behind no shards. Lethe stumbled back to the bowl, hands on the side of the stand, her insides twisted. What is your wish, wayfarer? Her eyes lifted to the stars above. Those burning lights, so close yet so far, watched with perfect stillness. Are you talking to me? Pulsars flared in the black heavens, revealing their galactic thrones in the sky. What is your wish, wayfarer? The question stopped her. Lethe glanced to the body of her sister. Every fiber, hair, and freckle of the corpse glowed with the same light of the stars and the secrets behind them. The entire world dissipated, from the ground to the pear trees, all the way up to the sky. There is no prize, other than what is already here, she said. I wish to walk the rest of the way. So you shall. The stars flared, strengthening with each gasp, until they blinded. Lost in the realm of heaven, at the edge of Lethe's vision formed a shadow. It took the shape of the beautiful lady, black-haired and dressed in her gown of licorice gossamer. Her skirts fell in waterfalls of sparking comets, weighing the dark matter down with them. Welcome, Lethe. The lady waved for her to follow. There's a long road ahead. Where does it lead? Lethe took her first steps on an unknowable path, each footfall destroying and remaking universes in their wake. Where do I go? Everywhere. Anywhere. Nowhere, said death in her most appealing guise. A small tinge of heartache entered. Then Kalia, she'll try again when the time is right. The lady in black strode forth, the hem of her dress leaving nebulas and red-purple strands behind, shedding life inhabited by billions of planets, trillions of stars, and unlimited potential. It never runs out. Lethe's skin vanished slowly into particles, the bones dissolving to their protons. Needles of time and space lanced the very fabric of what her existence had been, unraveling into a void to start anew. I'm unbound. You were to begin with, the lady said, high and proud before they vanished from one plane for the next. You simply had to accept it. Accept what? The dark, she answered. I'm always waiting, always wanting, always hoping to be relieved by your light. The end. Pear Tree was written and narrated by J. Requard. Copyright 2026. This audio production has been produced and distributed by Look Far Books. Thank you for listening.